Hello, everyone. This is Amy, Mystic Rose Tarot. So, this is something that I've been wanting to discuss when the timing was right. And the timing has arrived, so the timing is right. And I am talking about returns, all the way when we start from our solar return to our Pluto return, which we will never see. And I will explain very briefly in the next 20 minutes or so the speed and the rate that these planets move through all 12 signs and why we're able to experience more than one return with these planets. And the reason why I'm discussing this now is because I have entered, as of March 31st, in sidereal astrology, my Saturn return. This is my second Saturn return in the sign of Pisces. And in tropical astrology, we are looking at Saturn being in the sign of Aries. Now, the cards that I have here are all planetary influences. So I will bring the card up just for visual reference as I'm talking so that you can get an idea about the energy that I'm speaking about with these planets when it comes to the returns. So I'll go from the solar return all the way to the Uranus return, which there is a chance that we could have. And that's if we live long enough to be 84 years old, which I don't know. There's a possibility that quite a few of us will be able to experience a Uranus return. So let's start here with the sun. Okay, so we hear the term solar return. Okay, and this is of the Tabula Mundi. There we go. So when we hear solar return, okay, it's basically our birthday. So approximately, now you're going to get different information about the speed and the exact dates of when these planets go into their returns for many of you. So I'm just using this as a guide, a general guide, but the sun travels 53 seconds per day and spends about 30 days in each sign. So we average 30 days in a year, and every few days or every few months we have a 31-day month. Now, with our solar return with the sun, I'm just going to go over the energy briefly of the sun. So the sun is our life force. This is what is our persona. It's almost similar to the first house, because the first house is in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So I don't want to sidetrack too much, but let's just focus on the fiery energy of the sun. Okay, so the sun shows our inspiration and how we are showing this as people see us in the conscious realm. Okay, how we dress, so on and so forth. So if you happen to have your sun sign in any of the 12 signs, especially in the first house, there's going to be an emphasis on that external appearance, the mannerisms, how you dress, how you present yourself. Okay, and again with the sun, all of that energy that's being put into that sun sign is coming from inspiration. Okay, so our solar return is just the beginning. Okay, we also have our moon and Mars, Venus, Mercury, all of those planets that basically shape the dynamic of an individual astrologically. Okay, so here with this card, the Sun from the Tabula Mundi, we see a very strong life force, inward and outward. Okay, and I'm not going to go into the explanation of this card, but we have a very inspiring life force that's coming. And so when your sun sign is in any of the 12 signs, you look at those characteristics. Okay, those characteristics of that sun sign shapes us, who we are, but in the external realm. Okay, again, it's an inspiration that comes around us, and how we want to present ourselves to the people. All right, so next, our moon. So we have a solar return, but we also have a lunar return. Okay, lunar returns are pretty much your moon sign. Okay, and so the moon goes through all the 12 signs, about 28 days, 28 and a half days, and spends about 2 to 2.5 days in that sign. So as of the date of this recording, we had our new moon in Aries sidereally, but in tropical astrology, they are acknowledging the new moon is in Taurus. Okay, and just a quick side note, because I focus more on the sidereal aspects of astrology, I want those who watch this video and those who are exploring astrology to look at both views. Look at tropical Western astrology, but also look at sidereal. Okay, tropical Western astrology, that's a different video, but I have made mention of this. It's almost like the conscious realm, how we behave in relationships and careers, how we deal with things ourselves, you know, at that conscious realm, while sidereal is more of the psychological aspect, the deeper subconscious aspect of ourselves. So that's why, depending on your birth date, the sign for tropical astrology that you know for your sun sign could be different with sidereal, or it could be the same, again, based on the dates and the degree placement of your sign. So let's go back to the moon. Okay, so our lunar return, look at your chart. Okay, if you have an astro chart, look at the chart and just see where the moon was when you were born. You can look at the degree and see how strong of a placement the moon was, as well as the sun and all the other planets in your chart. So the moon. Okay, now this is where we're dealing with the spiritual side, the deep conscious aspect of ourselves, how we feel about things. The moon's feminine energy. The sun is masculine energy. Okay, so each of us have masculine and feminine energy. However you identify yourself, gender fluid, gay, queer, we all have these aspects of ourselves. Some of us are more leaned with masculine energy and less feminine, and vice versa. Okay, but here with the priestess, okay, we're feeling. We've got the full moon here in the background. Everything is going with intuition. How we feel about things, that, you know, that sense that we get about something, if it feels right or if it doesn't feel right. That's where that energy of the moon is coming from. Okay, so when you look at your chart, look at the moon, where it is degrees, like 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. There are different astrological systems that have different degrees of placement for the signs, but just to keep this very straightforward, if you can look from the 0 to 30 degree placement of these signs and planets and where they are in your chart, we could see where that influence is most strongest. Okay. I feel, this is just my personal take. I feel if you are 0 to 10, even 0 to 5, even, you're just, in that sign, like 0 to 5 degrees. Let's say your moon is in Taurus, but somewhere like 3 degrees, between 0 and 5 degrees. I personally feel you still have that influence of that sign, but not as much, because we're just moving that sign when you were born. And the moon, this is where it was just moving into that sign. And so I feel a lot of the influences that you take go from your predecessor sign. Okay. So if you're in the early degrees of a sign, again, this is just my opinion, you still take on those qualities. And it's something that you need to build, right? Because you're in the early stages of being in that sign placement. When you're in 10 to 20, when you're in the middle of that, I feel that's where you really have the strength of that sign. 20 to 30, okay, is where you're pretty much, well, encompassing all the elements of that sign, the tail end of it. But also you're getting prepared to learn a little bit of the sign that's coming ahead of you. Okay, so if you're 20 to 30 degrees Taurus, you would probably take some influence of Gemini. Okay, but you're still Taurus, but that influence, I feel, because it's the tail end of that sign, it shows that you have that full understanding and working of that sign, but also just to look into the influence of the sign that's coming right after. Okay, so I did a tangent. So your moon, 2.5 days, 2 to 2.5 days, it changes signs. So look at your chart and just see where your moon is the moment that you're born. And when the moon is in your sign, like currently we're at this point in time in your life, you will feel some influences of that. Okay, there you become a little bit more sensitive. And for instance, with this new moon in Aries, sidereal. Okay, so when the new moon is there and it starts moving out of its new moon phase and it starts to wax, which happens like about 3 days, we start seeing the crescent of the moon showing. But when we're in the new moon, we really want to focus on what we need to bring in. Okay, waxing is gaining energy. So as the moon gains light and power in that sense, we start feeling emotionally a little bit more outward. And that's why when the full moon happens and it's at its brightest state, we hear incidences of high energy. Things can be a little bit more volatile or a little bit more emotional, depending on the sign that it's in, because it's all this energy, like people howling at the moon. There's just that energy because the moon is so intense and it moves all these feelings and intuitive sides of us. It becomes more expressive. Okay, so from the new moon to the full moon, this is energy that's gaining. And that's where things inward become more revealed. Okay, we start expressing ourselves more at a deeper level with our moon signs. Okay, also look and see when you were born, if the moon was waxing, waning, if you were born during a new moon or a full moon, during a lunar eclipse, solar eclipse. Look at all of that as well, because that also plays a factor into the emotional aspect of who you are. Okay, so that's our moon energy. Okay, so the sun, our solar return every 30 days. And also our moon, I'm going to have to ignore that because I'm on a roll right now. So the moon, every 2 to 2.5 days, it goes through all the 12 signs. All right, so let's move straight ahead. So we have Mercury. Okay, again, I want to talk, this video is all about returns. Okay, So we do have a lunar return, we have our solar return, we have a Mercury return. Mercury return is not a Mercury retrograde. That is different. Okay, so please understand that. A retrograde is an illusion of where astrologically the planet looks like it's moving backwards. It's actually just slowing down its energy. And so when things are retrograde, or if you're doing a return of some sort, I feel retrogrades and returns are almost interchangeable, because it's allowing us a time to reflect. It's allowing us a time to slow down and see where things are, depending on what return you're focusing on. So with Mercury, I have here, which is ruled by the magician or the magus. This is the master. Okay, the magician is just the person who knows how to work with the tools that are available to them, and use these tools in a way that is very highly skilled. So with a Mercury return, the same thing. Look and see where Mercury is in your chart. Okay, and it takes 1 year for Mercury to go through all the 12 signs. Okay, and Mercury can stay in one sign, depending if it's retrograding or going direct. It could stay in one sign for about anywhere between 14, 15 to 30 days. So it can almost be half a month or an entire month, based on the movement of that planet and the sign that it's influencing in. So when you look at astrological calendars or planets or planners, you see Mercury like going retrograde for a while, and then it goes direct for like maybe a few days, and then it goes back to a retrograde state. That's an example of this energy that's Mercury's trying to do its work, but at that time, this is where the planet was. And again, look at the degrees. Look and see where the degrees are with your Mercury return. Okay, so Mercury, again, we're looking at the master. We're looking at someone who is skilled. With the tarot, we're looking at cups, wands, swords, pentacles, earth, air, fire, water. This is someone who knows how to work the mind, how to communicate. Can also be shrewd in that sense, because Mercury is all about communication and how it's used. Mercury also deals, again, depending on the sign, we're looking at how we use our emotions. Okay, we can be kind of shrewd and kind of slick with our emotions. We can use it to take advantage of people. That's all the ways of communication. Okay, but if you want to be open and expressive about how you feel, look at Mercury in those water signs. Okay, and see how good of a placement it is in your chart. Okay, and sometimes people have blocks, and it could be a retrograde point in your natal chart, and or it could be a square, or just some oppositions that are going on between Mercury and maybe one of the other planets in your chart. Okay, also look where on your chart where Mercury is and where it is directly across from, what house it could be going across, and see that dynamic. Okay, so we're looking at creative energy, but how we are using it and how we are creative and masterful with using Mercury as a form of communication. Okay, so again, Mercury, it takes about a year to go through all of the 12 signs, and it stays in one sign, again, depending if it's retrograding or not, anywhere from 14 to 30 days. So sometimes, when those retrogrades are long and we're going back and forth with it, it could be a little overwhelming. So when there is a lot of retrograding with Mercury in a certain sign and then it going direct, you get a little bit of a reprieve, and then it goes back. Just that back and forth movement, because Mercury is also air. Just definitely slow down. That's what the retrograde is. We want to slow down this energy. Our return, our Mercury return, look and see again that influence of that sign and where it is in your chart. Okay. So my Mercury return will be coming up, believe natally, I think it's coming up next month. Okay. But to find the precise degree of the moment that you're born, of your Mercury and that sun and that sign that Mercury was in, you have to look and see where Mercury is moving and where it falls on your birth date if you want to align it up. So the moment that you're born, let's say Mercury was 5 degrees 21 minutes, Mercury in Taurus, look and see your chart when Mercury in Taurus will be again at 5 degrees and 21 minutes. Okay. So, because I pay attention to those degrees as well, because it's at that moment, that's where that influence was coming in as you were being welcomed into this world. All right. So look at that. Look and see where Mercury is in your chart. Our next one is Venus. Okay. Right now, sidereally, we have quite a few planets right now still in Pisces. We have Mercury and Venus still in Pisces. Both planets were retrograding for a while in the sign of Pisces during the month of Pisces last month. So if things were kind of feeling really deep and not clear and a little murky, it's more than likely because of that retrograde that was going on in sidereal Pisces, which would make it sidereal Aries or tropical Aries, with Venus and Mercury. Okay. So Venus, takes, what is it here? Travels from 0 to 1 degree, 16 minutes a day. So it moves somewhat slow. Again, depending if it's retrograding or direct, and stays in the sign for about 23, 25 days to a little over a month. Every 8 years, it returns to the same degree, and over time forms a pentagram. So I've heard about stories that some of the stars, some of the asteroids, and also some of the placements of the planets, if you look carefully, they do make a rare shape like a rose, or a shape of a star in this case. So if you go online, you could see different planetary phenomenon and star phenomenon that's going up in our cosmos, forming a circle. So I think that's wonderful. When that happens, it's very rare, and especially if you're born during something of that uniqueness. That makes your character, depending on the sign and the planet, that much more unique. So with Venus, we're looking at it's ruled by the element of Earth. Okay, so we're looking at feminine energy, but this is energy of well-being of the land, well-being of the body, taking precedence over things that are of importance for you, including finances. And so look at your Venus, see where your Venus was the moment that you were born. Okay, again, look at the degrees. I'm going to go a little bit quicker because my computer is on a short charge, so I want to keep moving along. So our Venus return. Okay, so remember Venus, it stays in a sign about 23, 25 days to a little bit over 2 months. And again, every 8 years, it returns to the same degree. Venus travels 0 to 1 degree, 6 minutes a day, give or take. So remember, these stats that I'm talking to you about right now, they're going to be different depending on, who you're getting your astrological information with. I'm just using this as a guide, and you can use it as well just to follow where the planets and signs are in your chart. All right, so next up we have Mars. Okay, so I'm doing the order of the planetary placements here. Our Martial return, our Mars return. Okay, in the tarot, it's a sign. The Tower card. Okay, so Mars travels 0 to 1 degree, 16 minutes per day. It's almost around the same speed of Venus, but here we're looking at masculine energy. We have feminine energy here, masculine energy here. Again, 16 minutes per day. It travels depending if it's retrograding or if it's going direct. It takes about 2 years to go through all the 12 signs, and it stays in a particular sign or stays in one sign for about 1.5 months. Okay, so again, same concept. Look and see your chart where your Mars is. Look at the degree and where it is with the return if you're in your natal chart. Okay, so look at the degree placement of Mars and what sign it's in, and see when it comes back to that same placement in your natal chart, which I believe will probably happen a few times, since it goes through 2 years to go through all the 12 signs. So you will probably have a Mars return at least 4 times, probably even more, in your lifetime. Okay, so from Mars, so let me talk a little bit about Mars. So Mars, fiery energy, and I'm going to go back and forth with Venus because Venus and Mars work together because of those opposing elements, water and fire energy. One moves, one inspires at a external level, which is Mars, and one moves and inspires at an inner level, beauty-wise, and that's with the water feminine energy of the Empress. Okay, so with Mars, we really need to focus on initiating things, where, depending on the planet and the sign relationship that Mars is in your chart. How do we take things? How do we handle challenges? How do we move? Mars in Aries is a very energetic sign, because Aries is ruled by Mars, and those two are complementary. So there's a lot of quick movement. There's a lot of fiery energy when getting things done. And you could tell by the energy of the person who has a Mars in Aries. Mars moves things. It gets things going. So you will see a lot of taking charge, especially in the fire signs. If you have a fire sign placed in the planet of Mars, we're going to see a lot of movement, a lot of external energy, a lot of creative energy. And also, again, it's the relationship that Mars has with the other planets and signs in your natal chart. So look at your Mars and see about the return. Okay, we've got to be careful with this Mars energy, because as exciting and as thriving and as inspiring Mars is, if it's not balanced out well, it could cause conflict. Okay, and so when conflict comes into a fire sign that's already with Mars, it's going to cause a lot of strife, and it could cause some animosity if it's not well maintained. So if you have Mars and it's in a fire sign, watch that energy. We may want to tone it down a little bit. Mars and water signs, okay? So Mars, fire, water signs, water, depending on the rest of your chart. But with your Mars return in any of these elements, we're looking to see how we can create this balance of getting things done, doing it in a very forthright fashion, but not an overabundance of it, not in an anger way or not in a forced, stressed manner. Okay. And so if you have a good placement of Mars in your chart, we're going to see someone who has a lot of energy, but they're in control of it. It's someone who really knows their game and they really know how to get things done. That also goes with Mars in the air signs. Okay. Air and fire work good together. So Mars in any of the air signs can actually inspire the way of thought, the way of thinking, the way of getting things done, but more at a mental level, at an intellectual level. Okay. So when we look at the tower, okay, this influence of Mars, we're looking at breaking things down, sudden changes. Okay. How do you respond? How do you handle changes that happen very quickly? Okay. And the changes, because Mars is a fiery energy and it moves very quickly, it can be overwhelming. So I feel Mars with air sign influences in Mars can handle situations like this. Okay, because air signs, they have to think very quickly and problem solve through things. Water signs, Mars and water signs could be very challenging. Mars and earth signs, I almost forgot. Mars and earth signs can also be aggravating, okay? Because earth signs, we're looking for stability. We have a set foundation in the way of doing things, but when Mars comes in, it can shake things up, and I believe with some earthquakes in the past, astrologically, I think earthquakes have happened when Mars was actually in an earth sign. And so, and it could be a placement where Mars was just very volatile and where it was in the house and at that moment caused the earth to quake, volcanoes, anything of that nature, anything that's very eruptive. Okay, so those are the elements of Mars, their influences. Look at your returns. Okay, look at your Mars return. I'm going to go down here and then I'm going to end with these two cards. This is representing Eon, which is judgment, represents Pluto. And then the Fool here is Uranus. We're going to end with those two. Now, sidereal only works with the 7 planets. They do not work with Neptune, Pluto, or Uranus. So when I go to these planets, I'm going to focus more on the tropical western influences of those planets in relation to the signs. All right, so Mars, 2 years to go through all those 12 signs, and it stays in one sign for about 1.5 months. All right, next, everyone likes to have a good Jupiter experience. So we have Jupiter return. This is our symbol here. Let me move my finger down. This is our symbol for Jupiter. So we're looking Wheel of Fortune. Okay, Wheel of Fortune or fortune deals with karma. But Jupiter, the planet itself, is a fiery planet. And it takes 12 years to go through the 12 signs. So it's approximately 1 year that Jupiter stays in each sign. And it travels anywhere from 0 to 14 minutes a day. Again, depending if it is retrograding or if it's indirect. So as I'm explaining this and I'm breaking it down, if you haven't already, I suggest getting like an astrological planner. You can choose if you want to do sidereal or if you want to go tropical Western astrology. Make sure it shows degrees of where the planets are in the signs. It doesn't necessarily have the houses. A lot of the planners and calendars don't have the houses, but at least you could see the degree and where all these planets are moving, what sign that they're in, and you could follow it in line to what's going on in your life, what's going on in the news and things around you. So Jupiter, let's go back to Jupiter. A year for it goes through, it takes 1 year to go through all those 12 signs, and 12 years to go through all the signs. So a sign a year. So Jupiter, fiery, but we're looking at expansive. We're looking at energy where there is a lot of luck, abundance. Signs that are associated with Jupiter are Pisces and Sagittarius. So your Jupiter return, since it goes through all these 12 signs every 12 years, look and see where your Jupiter is. Okay. There is also the chance that you may have a bad or challenging Jupiter placement. Okay. And again, it depends on where it is in your chart, degree wise, the sign that's in, and also the relationship that Jupiter is having in your sign at that moment and where it is opposing. Okay. So I think it's always good when you look at your chart to see, again, the opposing aspect of where Jupiter is. Is Jupiter opposing your 10th house, which is ruled by Capricorn, but is your 10th house in the sign of, let's say, Aries? When Jupiter is in a fire sign, okay, same thing, because Jupiter is all about expansive luck and whatnot. We got to watch about how much of this. This is a planet that deals with weight, gross amount of things. Jupiter and any of the fire signs can actually aggravate confidence, like overly confident. You have a Jupiter in Leo in the 10th house. We're looking at someone who is very confident with their career, and they go after things, and they can feel and see the benefits of their hard work. But there can be too much of this, because then there could be this overconfidence, like things are going good, I like this, let's keep this luck coming, and then something happens and it knocks that out. It can actually weaken the element of fire in these fire signs, because it's the luck, it's the abundance, it's what they know Jupiter to be associated with. Okay, Jupiter in the water signs, very good. Okay, Jupiter in earth signs, it's a form of stability. There's a groundingness that can be a little bit of a challenge, because Jupiter is, again, a planet that likes to have things come in. It's also a planet where we really need to acknowledge where we are in our lives, and if we have too much of something, that it could be a time to maybe let go of it and bring in something else. Okay. So those are some aspects of Jupiter. Jupiter in any of the air signs. Okay. Expansiveness of thought. Okay. This could be also a very positive placement for the air signs, because we have air and fire working together. Could inspire thought. Jupiter in Aquarius, I would say, would probably be a really good placement, because of the way of wanting to make change and seeing things from a different perspective. This would be very inspiring if Jupiter is in Aquarius in your chart. Okay, so again, these are the returns. Okay, look at your return, look at your return. Let me just kind of clear up. Your return is basically the exact degree placement of the planet and the sign. Okay. And so again, as we start going into the slower moving planets, like from Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, the slower moving planets. Um, the last two or three we'll probably not experience while we're on this plane, but when they are returning at the exact degree of when you were born, Jupiter in whatever sign it is, it's a very special moment. Okay, and just I think it's good to honor that time of when you were born and when Jupiter is in Taurus or whatever sign it is, and um, acknowledge the gift that you got from it. Because I think Jupiter is a very gift-giving planet, something very unique. So wherever your Jupiter is, and even I talked about the fire signs and whatnot. It's just knowing how to work um, with stuff that's coming in like nonstop. When do we know when to stop? Okay, what can we take from what's coming to us? Not everything. Take what we need, and everything else just let go. All right, excuse me. So next, our Saturn. Saturn is associated with the World card. And here is Saturn. Okay, so going back to what I was talking about, the Saturn return. Saturn returns, you'll probably have 3 of them in your lifetime. First one, Saturn travels. Well, let me explain here. Saturn travels 0 to 8 minutes per day. Again, if it's retrograding or direct. And it takes approximately, and this is when we get our first return, 29 and a half years, okay, to go through all the 12 signs. And so when you have a return, it's going to stay in that sign for 2.5 years. So people dread the Saturn return, and there's nothing. If me and other readers can just state this, there is nothing to fear with any of the Saturn returns, and of course the retrogrades. Okay, I don't like to hear fear mongering and things that just kind of shutter people's point of view when it comes to things that are happening at an astrological level. I don't think that's necessary. But when we do our Saturn return, okay, I feel the first Saturn return when 29 and a half tends to be the hardest. The people that I've spoken to and the experience I've had, there was always something life-changing for them, either for the good or for the worst. And I honestly feel when we start getting to our returns, whether it's our solar, lunar, Venus, Mercury, Saturn returns, it's not that they happen right there, at that 29 and a half years, or exactly at that 1 year that it goes into the next sign. It's building up. And so what I've noticed as I enter my second return, there are things that are happening beforehand that's sort of prepping us for the return. And that's something I like. I like people to kind of pay attention to. I want them to see as they're getting close to the return, from solar all the way till, let's just say, your Uranus return. Look at the years prior, 2 to 3 years prior to your return, and see, again, you got to know your chart and see what's been developing, because I think these are energies, forces that are helping us and wanting us to be more awake to what's coming up ahead, what we need to learn from. Saturn is the planet of karma, and that's one of the other aspects that people tend to associate Saturn with, is because it's it's dealing with previous experience, but the previous experience from our first return. But I feel the second return is from the 29 to our 59th year on this planet, and then the third Saturn return would be, I believe it's, let me go to 8, like 72, 74, something like that. I think I'm off by a few years, but I feel the second return is probably the most prominent because it's what we've experienced from our first Saturn return at 29 and the years before. And what have we learned from it between 29 and your late 50s? That's a large gap of time. And I will say that when you hit your 30s, like right after your Saturn return or during your Saturn return, from 29 to 28, 29 to like 31, 32, that's when things really start. It's time to get serious. And that's where Saturn's influence of discipline, structure, order come into play. We're trying to piece things together in our lives to make some sense of where we want to go, who we want to be. And so during those 29 years, from your first Saturn return to when you get to your late 50s, early 60s, the work that you've done from the 29 to the 58 is going to be representatory of who you are. And so you have to look back and see where you are when you hit your second return, where you came from. Okay. And here with this universe card or the world card, this is the last card of the major arcana. Okay. And remember, we're looking at cycles. So if this card comes up during your first Saturn return, well, there you go. That's the first cycle you're going through. This card comes up when you're heading into your second Saturn return. It's reminding you the development, the changes. This spiral here is representative of the DNA, what has become part of us, what we may have discovered now that we didn't when 29, 28 years prior. This is all about growth. And also I feel it's a time of definitely the word self-empowerment, because things should start feeling like they're making sense, or things have resolved themselves and you're now able to work with your Saturn return towards things in a more direct manner. Okay, so I feel the second return can actually be very positive because it's a maturity of the self, and Saturn is father energy, patriarchal energy, and it's opposing sign because Saturn's ruled by Capricorn. The opposing sign of Capricorn is Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, and that's maternal energy, that's feminine energy. So we're seeing a development with this, with your return, especially your Saturn returns, where we start from our late 20s to where we are in our late 50s and early 60s. Okay, so this is the card that I feel, or the planet Saturn, that really takes us in our second return to really show the world what we want them to see of us. Be the change that we like the world to see. Okay, so again with Saturn, it travels 0 to 8 minutes a day, depending if it's retrograding or not. And it happens every 29 and a half years. It goes through all the 12 signs. So this year, Saturn, as I mentioned, the end of March, moved into sidereal Pisces and tropical Aries. And I feel these two are very relevant because Pisces is the end of the astrological wheel, while Aries is the beginning. So I feel these two signs in Saturn, depending if you're going to follow Western or sidereal, I feel these two are something to learn from. It's like we're the ending of one cycle of Pisces, the shedding of what was going on throughout all the 12 signs to get to Pisces, and then the beginning with Aries. Aries is the external. That's how we want people to see ourselves. Okay, so we want to, Saturn's all about growth, okay, and lessons learned from the previous 29 years. All right. Next we have Uranus. Okay, and this is Uranus. Okay, so Uranus, this is our element of air. Uranus is an air planet. So we're starting the journey again. What do we know of Uranus? Uranus is the planet of not sudden changes, but advancements. It's quite different from the Mars energy, the Tower card of sudden change. That's like physical energy. Here, the Fool, we're looking at advancements. We're looking at advancements at a spiritual realm, technological realm as well. And Uranus travels 0 to 4 minutes per day, and it moves through all the 12 signs approximately 84 years. So that's why I'm saying that many of us live to that year of 84 years on this earth. That's when your Uranus return happens. It stays in one sign for about 7 years. And right now, Uranus, I believe, it's in Taurus, but I think it's starting to head out of Taurus. I think it's Taurus sidereally and also tropical wise. I'm not certain on that, but the fact that it stays in one sign for about 7 years, we could see in that 7-year time frame, Uranus and Taurus. Taurus, is all about things that are of security. It's Uranus and Taurus, they don't go good together, okay? Because we want security, we want stability. While Uranus is doing advancements, it's wanting to move forward. It's more of an advanced planet in that sense of how it wants things to progress. While Taurus wants these advancements to happen, and it's happening slowly because Uranus does stays in that sign for 7 years. But look at the last 7 years of where we've been with Uranus, and also look at Uranus in your chart and see where it was at the time that you were born. And also take into consideration what was going on at that time when Uranus was in a particular sign. Okay, and see the influences that were happening. So when it comes to our return, when we're 84, I want to take this more as, again, the advancement of ourselves. When we're 84, physically, we're going to be in a different place. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we're going to be different. But we have evolved. And I feel that when we hit 84, this Fool, it's almost like the journey has come to like complete circle. This is as far as you're going to go. Okay. We're not going to live on this planet for another 84 years. Okay. So for me, I feel Uranus is at 84 is the full role of the self, the role of yourself as a spiritual self, as a physical self, mental, emotionally. I feel once you're at that age, you've hit your peak. This is who you are. I'm not saying it's going downhill from that point onward, but it's just thinking about how Uranus works, about moving forward, but like advancements with different aspects of what's going on in the world, but also the advancements that are happening with ourselves. I feel it reaches the full peak. So for me, I feel like the Fool here is like the full completion of the self. All right, so next we have Neptune. Okay, we're almost done here. Neptune is associated with the Hangman. Okay, and so Neptune is all the subconscious. It is the planet that is ruled by Pisces. Pisces has Jupiter and Neptune. Neptune's the modern planet. And so we talked about Pisces a little bit. Pisces is the deep unknown, the deep subconscious, understanding those aspects of ourselves. Now, here's the deal, though. Okay, Neptune takes about 165 years to go through all 12 signs, staying in each one for 14 years. So I believe our Neptune right now is in Pisces, sidereal. It could also be in Pisces as well, in tropical Western astrology. I'm not certain, but Neptune in Pisces right now. If you have this placement in your chart, Neptune with the water signs are a wonderful combination because it does deal with inner discovery, inner soul searching, spirituality, seeking these answers within ourselves, soul searching. So Neptune, the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, they understand this energy of Neptune. They know about the deeper aspects of things that we can't see or things we can't explain. There's a connection that water signs have to the unknown, to the unexplained. And so it's no surprise that in the metaphysical, astrology, tarot reading, witchcraft, occult, you would probably see quite a few readers and practitioners who have very strong placements of water signs. It doesn't necessarily have to be in Neptune, but if your Neptune is like in Scorpio or in Cancer or in Pisces, the understanding of the deeper layers of things that are in the dark that can't be seen by other people is suitable for these signs. They feel, they connect, they know how to work with this energy. Okay, so Neptune is the revealing of our inner self, the exploration of ourselves. So that's why here with the Hangman we have a person who's reversed. The head, the conscious, is facing now in the position of where the feet would be. Okay, so we're heading towards the deeper realms of the unknown. And the influence that we are getting by being in this realm will shape our outlook when this card is reversed and the head is facing upward, representing the conscious realm. Is what did we learn? What's the experience that we're getting? What can we share with people when Neptune is in any of these signs? Neptune and fire signs, Neptune and earth signs. Think about that. Okay, fire and water, Neptune and Aries. I don't think because I don't have my ephemeris here of when Neptune was in all the signs, but think about those opposing elements. What's the influence that Neptune will have in a fire sign? Neptune in an air sign, Neptune in earth signs. Okay, water and earth go complement each other. So there is a stability that becomes even more so if Neptune, I feel, is in any of the earth signs, Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn. All right. So Neptune takes 165 years to go through all the 12 signs, and it stays in one sign for 14 years. Okay, so look at your chart, look at where Neptune is in your chart, and see where things were at the time that you were born, what was going on in the world at that time, and compare it to where we are right now. See how that influence has shaped you. Okay. All right, now lastly, we got Pluto. Okay, so Pluto is the Judgment card in the tarot. Here is the Judgment card. This is like a card of just like what's been cracked open and what's being revealed. Now, Pluto is fire. It travels, it takes about 248 years to go through all the 12 signs. And it stays in each one from 14 to 30 years. So that's why when people pay attention to the energy of Pluto, some of them feel it a little bit more than others. Some of them watch what's going on in the world, especially with Pluto, because Pluto is a planet of destruction, but also regenerating. Once something's been broken down and it's been revealed, its true source has been revealed, the healing starts from that. And once the healing has happened, what have we regenerated to? Okay. And so I believe Pluto right now is in Capricorn sidereal, and I think it's Aquarius in Western astrology. Again, I don't have my chart in front of me right now, so I'm just remembering for what I saw last. So this is the revealing of energy that needs to be broken down. Pluto for me is forced change. Okay, Pluto is a planet that also rules Scorpio. And we know what Scorpio is. Scorpio is all about the emotional sense of the self, the intensity, the desire that Scorpio has towards things, but also getting to the root, really understanding where that desire, where that drive is coming from. Scorpio is also ruled by Mars. So Mars gives that initiative, it gives that fiery movement, emotional movement for Scorpio. But this is what's really going on, okay? This is all about revealing what is the root? What is the root of the issue? Okay. And in a sense, I feel Neptune and Pluto sort of complement each other. I know it's water with Neptune and fire for Pluto, but one is making a move to, understand the deeper layers of ourselves, the hangman, going down to the emotional core of things. While here, the Judgment card, Eon card, ruled by Pluto, is getting to that root, getting to that core, understanding the subconscious aspect of what's causing a certain situation, or trying to understand something, but then breaking it apart so that we can really see its true essence. And once we see that true essence, this changes us. Okay, we'll never have a Pluto return. Okay, and the same with Neptune. Uranus is as close as we can get to the slower moving planets for a return. Okay, but I do feel it is important for tropical astrology to pay attention of these. I should say Pluto's now a star. It's not considered a planet anymore. Consider Uranus and Neptune the planets, and Pluto the star. I'll correct myself there. And their energy and their forces. When it comes to the returns with the slower moving planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, Saturn is slow, but not as slow as Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Pay attention to what's going on in the world. Okay, because the last two signs, Neptune and Pluto, or planets in luminary, or the star of Pluto, are the most recent planets that were discovered. We also have Chiron. I forgot Chiron. Chiron is also your return happens when you're 50, between 50 and 51. And Chiron is also known as the wounded healer. This is a time where we take aspect of how we are healing ourselves, and also how we're taking that information of what we're learning about healing and how we are applying it to others and also out into the world. There's no card in the tarot for Chiron as far as I know. But I wanted to throw that in because we do have a Chiron return, but again, that happens when you're 50. But again, look again with Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, okay, look and see what's happening, okay, currently, because these are generational planets. So the influence that we get with these planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, will affect all of us. Okay, and so those influences based on the sign of where Uranus, Neptune, Pluto is, will be a dynamic part of how we see things and how we act about things in the world at a global level. Okay, so there you have it. I'm going to stop right there. So just to retrack, okay, we're looking at returns. Your personal returns, the returns that you have are solar return every 30 days, the moon every 28 and a half days. It goes through all the signs and it stays in the sign for 2.5 days, the moon. Mercury goes through all the signs in 1 year. It stays in a sign for about 30 years. Venus stays in a sign for about 25 days to 2 months. Mars takes 2 years to go through all the 12 signs, so on and so forth. Saturn or Jupiter, 12 years to go through all the 12 signs. So Jupiter stays in a sign for 1 year. Look at all of these, okay, in your chart. And again, when we have these returns, pay attention to the years happening, the years before your return is happening, okay, because I think you'll start getting some signs, some direction of change, okay. That's what returns and retrogrades are all about. These are different levels of ourselves that we could sit and spend time with or take action of, the opportunity to, to increase, to amplify things that we really want to have happen in our lives. Okay. So here you have it. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. You can reach me via my website. Leave comments. And let me know how your returns are going. If anyone's, I know Gen Xers, we're pretty much heading into our Saturn returns about now. And so I'd like to know from the Gen X generation how your Saturn returns are coming. How are they going? Are you at the tail end of it? Because it can be very life-changing and giving us a sense of awareness that we may not have been, paying much attention to. Again, the returns with all the planets, pay attention to those: Mercury, Venus, Mars, so on and so forth. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for watching. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. And I am happy to help you out in any way possible. All right. Have a wonderful week, everyone. And remember, the Taboola Monday study group is coming up soon. You could go to my website and click on the link on the website of the navigation that says Taboola Monday Tarot Study Group, or Taboola Monday Tarot Study Group, and you could see the information there for signing up, and there's no charge for it. All right. Thank you again.